Have you ever felt that there's something deeper to reality than what meets the eye? Picture yourself in a dream. Everything feels real, tangible, utterly convincing, until you wake up. What if our entire existence operates in a similar way? What if, like the characters in the Matrix, we're living in a grand illusion, moving through a reality that's far more mysterious and profound than we imagine? Think about it for a moment. Birth and death, the two greatest mysteries of human existence. We celebrate one and fear the other, yet both represent doorways, transitions between states of being that we barely understand. Just as Neo discovered the true nature of his reality in the Matrix, these profound transitions might hold the key to understanding the deeper truth of our existence. The concept isn't as far-fetched as it might seem. Quantum physics has shown us that reality isn't as solid as we once thought. The chair you're sitting on right now, it's mostly empty space. The thoughts in your mind, they're patterns of energy that influence the physical world in ways we're only beginning to comprehend. Consider this. When a baby is born, they enter what appears to be a world of separation and limitation. They must learn to navigate physical boundaries, to understand themselves as separate from others. But what if, like Neo being unplugged from the Matrix, death is actually an awakening? A return to a state of pure consciousness where these limitations dissolve. Throughout history, mystics and spiritual teachers have pointed to this truth. They've spoken of Maya, the illusion of the material world. They've described our physical reality as a kind of dream state, a projection of consciousness itself. The Matrix didn't just create a compelling story. It tapped into an ancient wisdom that's been whispered through the ages. In the next few minutes, we're going to explore these profound connections. We'll examine how birth and death might be different sides of the same coin, both intimately connected to the nature of consciousness itself. We'll look at how understanding these transitions can transform our perspective on life, death, and the nature of reality itself. This isn't just philosophical speculation. This understanding has the power to fundamentally change how you live your life right now. When you begin to see through the illusion, just as Neo did, everything shifts. Fear dissolves. Limitations fade. You start to recognize your true nature beyond the physical form. Are you ready to question everything you think you know about reality? Are you prepared to look beyond the veil and glimpse what might lie behind this grand illusion we call life? Let's begin this journey together as we explore the profound connection between birth, death, and the Matrix. The fundamental challenge we face today lies in our deep-seated attachment to what we perceive as physical reality. Like the inhabitants of the Matrix who couldn't imagine life beyond their simulated world, we struggle to see past the apparent solidity of our material existence. This attachment creates a profound misunderstanding of both birth and death. Most people view birth as the beginning of existence and death as its end. This limited perspective keeps us trapped in a cycle of fear and attachment, much like the characters in the Matrix who fought to protect the only reality they knew. We cling to the physical world, terrified of losing it, never realizing that our true nature might transcend these physical boundaries entirely. Our society reinforces this misunderstanding. We're taught to identify completely with our physical bodies, our personal histories, and our material achievements. This identification creates what spiritual teachers call the ego self, a false identity that, like the Matrix's digital self-image, masks our true nature. This artificial construct becomes so convincing that we mistake it for our real identity. The challenge deepens when we consider how our educational and social systems rarely acknowledge anything beyond the material realm. We're trained to trust only what we can see, touch, and measure. This materialistic worldview creates a kind of psychological prison, similar to the Matrix's digital prison, limiting our understanding of birth, death, and consciousness itself. Moreover, we face the challenge of our own resistance to questioning these fundamental assumptions. Like Cypher in the Matrix, who preferred the comfort of illusion to the challenge of truth, we often choose familiar limitations over the uncertainty of expanded awareness. This resistance stems from our fear of the unknown and our attachment to our current understanding of reality. Another significant obstacle is our tendency to intellectualize spiritual concepts rather than experience them directly. We might understand the idea that physical reality is an illusion, but this intellectual understanding alone doesn't lead to transformation. It's similar to how Neo couldn't learn to truly bend the rules of the Matrix just by being told they weren't real. He had to experience this truth directly. The modern world's constant distractions and sensory overload further compound this problem. The noise of everyday life, both literal and metaphorical, makes it difficult to quiet our minds enough to perceive anything beyond our immediate physical experience. This continuous bombardment of sensory input serves as a kind of static, keeping us locked in surface-level awareness. Perhaps the most challenging aspect is our fear of death. This fear isn't just about physical extinction, it's about the ego's terror of its own dissolution. Just as the machines in the Matrix fought to maintain their control, our ego self fights to maintain its illusory existence, creating resistance to any deeper understanding of reality. These challenges create a self-reinforcing cycle. Our fear of death leads to stronger attachment to physical reality, which in turn deepens our identification with the body and ego, which then increases our fear of death. Breaking free from this cycle requires more than just new information. It requires a fundamental shift in perception. The connection between birth, death, and the Matrix becomes clear when we understand the nature of consciousness itself. Consciousness isn't produced by the brain, just as the real Neo wasn't created by the Matrix. Rather, consciousness is the fundamental reality from which all experiences arise. This understanding forms the foundation of why seeing through the illusion of physical reality is possible and transformative. The Matrix brilliantly illustrates this through Neo's journey of awakening. When he discovers that his physical reality is a simulation, he doesn't lose anything real. Instead, he gains access to a greater truth. Similarly, when we begin to see through the illusion of physical reality, we don't lose the world, we gain a deeper understanding of its true nature. This concept aligns perfectly with quantum physics' discovery that solid matter, at its most fundamental level, is mostly empty space and patterns of energy. What appears solid is actually a dance of energy and information, much like the digital rain of the Matrix. Our physical bodies, which seem so solid and real, are more like temporary patterns in an infinite field of consciousness. Birth, from this perspective, isn't the beginning of existence but rather consciousness taking on a particular form. Like Neo entering the Matrix, it's consciousness stepping into a specific pattern or configuration. This explains why birth is both an entrance into limitation, the physical body, and an opportunity for experience and growth. Death, consequently, isn't an ending but a transition, consciousness releasing one form to return to its original state. Just as Neo's deaths in the Matrix never affected his true existence in the real world, physical death doesn't end consciousness. It simply marks a transition in how consciousness expresses itself. The power of this understanding lies in its ability to free us from our most fundamental fears and limitations. When we recognize that our true nature is consciousness itself, rather than the temporary forms it takes, we begin to experience life differently. The fear of death diminishes because we understand that our essential nature cannot die. This shift in perception affects everything. Our attachment to physical limitations loosens, just as Neo's understanding allowed him to transcend the supposed rules of the Matrix. We begin to experience ourselves as the awareness in which all experiences arise, rather than as separate, limited beings trapped in physical forms. The Matrix's famous scene where Neo sees the code behind reality parallels this understanding. Just as Neo learned to perceive the deeper patterns behind his apparent reality, we can learn to recognize consciousness as the substrate of all experience. This isn't just philosophy, it's a practical shift in perception that transforms how we live. This understanding works because it aligns with both ancient wisdom and modern physics. It explains phenomena that materialism struggles with, such as near-death experiences, the placebo effect, and the observer effect in quantum mechanics. Just as the Matrix provided a framework that explained Neo's seemingly impossible abilities, this understanding of consciousness explains many mysterious aspects of human experience. To begin experiencing the truth about birth, death, and the illusory nature of physical reality, we must develop specific practices that help us see beyond our conditioned perception. Like Neo learning to see the code behind the Matrix, these practices help us recognize the deeper reality behind physical appearances. First, practice witnessing consciousness. Start by simply observing your thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations without identifying with them. Notice how, like the characters in the Matrix who weren't actually their digital avatars, you aren't these passing experiences, you're the awareness in which they appear. This simple but profound practice begins to loosen our identification with the physical form. The second practice involves questioning your assumptions about reality. Throughout your day, pause and ask yourself, what is actually experiencing this moment? Notice how, like the Matrix's simulation, everything you experience, sights, sounds, thoughts, feelings, appears within consciousness. This questioning helps break down the illusion of being a separate physical entity. Another powerful technique is contemplating birth and death not as beginnings and endings, but as transitions of consciousness. When you wake up each morning, observe how consciousness naturally transitions from the dream state to the waking state. This daily experience mirrors both birth and death, offering a practical way to understand these greater transitions. Practice sitting in pure awareness. Find a quiet space and simply rest as awareness itself, without getting caught in thoughts about past or future. Notice how, like Neo's real body outside the Matrix, your true nature as consciousness remains unchanged while experiences come and go. Implement the Matrix pause throughout your day. Randomly stop and notice how everything you're experiencing, the room, your body, your thoughts, is appearing within consciousness. Like Neo seeing through the illusion of the Matrix, this practice helps you recognize the true nature of reality. Work with the body scan technique. Lie down and slowly move your attention through your body, noticing how sensations appear and disappear in consciousness. This helps you understand that even your physical form is a pattern of sensations appearing in awareness, much like Neo's digital body in the Matrix. Practice dying before you die. A traditional spiritual technique where you imaginatively experience releasing all attachments. Notice how consciousness remains even as you let go of everything you typically identify with. This practice reduces the fear of death by showing that your essential nature is independent of physical form. These practices work together to help you recognize what the Matrix metaphorically shows us, that physical reality is not as solid or limiting as it appears. Like Neo learning to bend the rules of his apparent reality, these practices help you see beyond conventional limitations. Remember, these aren't just mental exercises. They're practical tools for experiencing the truth about reality directly. Just as Neo couldn't learn to transcend the Matrix's limitations through intellectual understanding alone, these practices must be experienced to be effective. Start with 5 minutes of practice each day, gradually increasing the duration as you become more comfortable. Like Neo's training, consistent practice leads to deeper understanding and experience. When we truly understand the connection between birth, death, and the Matrix-like nature of reality, profound transformations naturally occur. Our relationship with existence fundamentally shifts, leading to tangible changes in how we experience life. The primary transformation is freedom from the fear of death. Just as Neo ceased fearing death within the Matrix once he understood its illusory nature, understanding consciousness as our true nature dissolves the terror of physical extinction. This freedom allows us to live more fully and authentically. Our relationship with life becomes more playful and creative. Like Neo learning to bend the rules of the Matrix, we begin to see physical limitations as more flexible than we previously believed. This shift often manifests as increased synchronicities, enhanced intuition, and a greater sense of flow in daily life. Relationships transform as we recognize that consciousness connects all beings. The understanding that we're all expressions of the same consciousness, like different characters in the Matrix connected to the same source, naturally develops compassion and empathy. Physical and emotional healing often accelerate. When we understand that our true nature is consciousness rather than the physical body, we're less likely to hold onto trauma and limiting beliefs. Like Neo healing his digital body through understanding its true nature, our recognition of our essential nature as consciousness can facilitate healing. Some might question whether seeing physical reality as an illusion means denying its importance or avoiding practical responsibilities. This misunderstanding is similar to thinking that Neo's awakening to the Matrix's illusory nature made his actions within it meaningless. Others might worry that accepting death as a transition will lead to reckless behavior or decreased survival instinct. However, understanding death's true nature actually enhances our appreciation for life, just as Neo's understanding of the Matrix's nature made his actions within it more purposeful. Some might find it difficult to reconcile this understanding with scientific materialism. Remember that quantum physics already shows us that matter isn't as solid as it appears. The Matrix's metaphor of reality as a construct of consciousness aligns surprisingly well with cutting-edge physics. Another common concern is whether these insights are just another form of escapism. But like Neo's awakening, this understanding doesn't remove us from reality. It helps us engage with it more fully and authentically. Begin your journey of understanding by implementing the practices we've discussed. Start with just 5 minutes daily of witnessing consciousness, gradually increasing the duration as you become comfortable. Notice how your perspective shifts as you practice. Pay attention to changes in your fear levels, your relationships, and your general sense of well-being. Like Neo's gradual awakening to his true nature, your understanding will deepen with practice. Share your experiences with others who are on similar paths. Your insights might help someone else understand these profound truths, just as Morpheus helped Neo recognize the true nature of his reality. Remember, this understanding isn't just philosophical, it's meant to be lived. Let it inform how you move through the world, how you relate to others, and how you approach both life and death. Consider starting a journal to track your insights and experiences. Like Neo's training records in the Matrix, documenting your journey can help you recognize patterns and deepen your understanding. This journey of awakening to the true nature of reality is perhaps the most important exploration we can undertake. It's time to see how deep the rabbit hole goes.